Hello, Grace Community Church. Pastor Steve here, continuing our journey cover to cover, and today is July 21, and we're looking at a variety of passages: 2 Kings chapter 19, Isaiah 37, 2 Chronicles 32. Now, I am going to go back in time to a previous day's reading because this, for me, is one of the most exciting sections of all of the Bible. Now, why do I say that? Number one, the story shows up in three different places: Isaiah, Kings, Chronicles. That alone tells you the importance of this passage. But we also see an intersection with biblical archaeology. And it is one of the most powerful passages on the nature of God and how we relate to Him in the midst of our own life crises. So here's the story. The Assyrian kingdom is the most dominant power on earth in this part of the world at this time. Here is a depiction of it. You can see it spreading from the Mesopotamian valley area down through what would be Israel, and then even Egypt is under the sway of the Assyrians. Up to this point, Hezekiah is basically a vassal state, meaning the kingdom of Judah, of which Hezekiah is king. It is paying off the Assyrians to basically keep them at bay. But what ultimately happens, and we talked about this in previous days, is that in order to pay them off, Hezekiah literally scrapes the gold off the temple doors and gives it to Sennacherib, the king of Assyria. Now, this move, from his perspective, was to keep the Assyrian Empire at bay. But all it did was attract the Assyrians to say, if they're giving this much gold away freely, there must be more up there. And when I say up there, it's because Jerusalem is in the mountains of Judea. It's not easy to take a mechanized army up there. And so, smelling more wealth, Sennacherib says, hey, this is worth a detour to make it up there. And so thus begins the conflict. And now here is how it unfolds. We move on, and it says in the previous day's reading that the city of Lachish, a fortified city of Judah, was under siege, which means the next stop is Jerusalem, the capital. Now, why was this fortified city Lachish there? It's protecting a dry waterbed, what would be called a wadi in the Middle East, what we would call in Nevada a wash. And in that defense of that city of Lachish, if Lachish collapses, this whole army is going to make its way up the dry waterbed up to Jerusalem. And it says, because of this, Hezekiah needed to preserve the water in the city, preparing it for a siege. Now here's Jerusalem, and over here is the Gihon spring. And what they wanted to do is to make sure the water from the Gihon spring, which is right by the wall, would make it internally into the city. And so people dig like crazy to build this waterway, which is now called Hezekiah's Tunnel. Here is another depiction of it. This is with a cutout. And what's interesting, I've gone through Hezekiah's Tunnel multiple times. It does meander around for about a little less than a mile. And it was dug through solid rock. And the way they would find where the other team was, one team digging from here, another team digging from here, is they would periodically pop their heads out with a shaft to see where the other team was. And they would continue to dig. This is what it looks like inside this waterway. And the water is still there to this day. Now, it's illuminated. The only reason it's illuminated is because somebody has a flash photography. It is pitch black inside to this day. And you can walk the entire route through it. And when you walk through it, you have the sense that these people are digging for their lives to survive. And they know a major army is coming to attack. Well, here is Lachish on this map. Here is the Wadi Gurin, in which their mechanized army is going to make their way to Jerusalem. And it's scary. Now, here's what's really interesting. If you go to the Israel Museum, the Ninevites, or the Assyrians, they actually preserved the conquest of Lachish on these, what they're called, steels. And they're on display in the Israel Museum. They were found in Nineveh. And this is the siege ramp at Lachish that Sennacherib built to conquer Lachish. It is still there to this day. And it's a very powerful scene. In fact, Israel troops to this day will often go there to remind Israel, we cannot let our borders fail, because this is a symbol of defeat. Here's the friezes that were found. This sloping up is the depiction of the Assyrians making their way up the siege ramp. This picture depicts the Assyrians holding up impaled Israelite soldiers being marched around the city to just crush morale, to let them know what's going to happen to them when they are defeated. And then finally, the defeat of Lachish, the governor of Lachish, surrendering to Sennacherib, and this is preserved again in the Israel Museum. Now, this is what ultimately happens. You can see the Assyrian Empire, except for one little area here where they were defeated. And how were they defeated? Well, that's the story of today's passage. It's actually the prophetic word of the Lord that he is going to defeat them by ultimately having Sennacherib called back to his own community of Nineveh, and that's right over here, and there he will be killed. And what happens to the Assyrian soldiers? 185,000 are found dead. Complete defeat. Now, when we look at this passage, and here are the takeaways today, in Kings 19, Sennacherib writes a letter saying, why are you even thinking you have a chance against us? You know that every other city has fallen to us. Why would you think you are going to survive? And what we read is Hezekiah and Isaiah spread out that letter that shows up several places, spreads out the letter saying, Lord, what he's saying is true. They are undefeatable, but you're bigger than they are. And then moving on, we read that Isaiah declares this word from the Lord, I have heard your prayer. And it turns out, it says that God planned this from long ago. Nothing surprises the Lord. Not your cancer diagnosis, not your unemployment. Nothing surprises the Lord. In verse 31 of 2 Kings 19, the passionate commitment of the Lord is on your side. I love the way the New Living has translated that. The passionate commitment of the Lord is on your side. And moving on to verse 34, we read, for the Lord's honor and for David's sake, God's going to do this. Not because Hezekiah has it perfect. God acts for his name, not for yours. It's not about you having your perfect life together. What he does for his own glory. And then finally, Isaiah 37, 185,000 troops are dead. I love the story because it tells us, give it to the Lord. Lay out your bills. Lay out your diagnosis. Give it to the Lord. And remember, he acts for his name's sake, not for ours. Important story. 3 places in Scripture, confirmed by archaeology, our God wins. Hey, God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow.